The electrochemical records of the zero seed of all things are the zero elements, which are known as the inert gases, from which center of the fulcrum zero of polarity all polarizing body forms extend to manifest vitalizing life, and return as depolarizing forms to manifest devitalizing death.
The inert gases are God's recording and repeating system. They record, remember, and repeat all actions and reactions of all things from eternity unto eternity. They broadcast all of creation to all creation, and likewise receive the broadcasts of all creation for rebroadcasting to all creation.
The inert gases are zeros in the universal equilibrium. Polarity divides and extends the one light into electric thought wave cycles, which appear from the one still light as moving pairs of moving lights and disappear into that still light for reappearance forever without end.
The inert gases are the spiritual elements which born and reborn the physical elements, and meticulously make spectrum records of their eternities of rebornings.
The inert gases center all elements from within to control their unfolding cycles of polarizing, depolarizing form, and balance them from without by two poles of still light to control their refolding of form into their zero seed.
The inert gases record purposeful unfoldings and give back to each corpuscle of motion its cell memory of purpose and its instinctive guidance.
They likewise give back to awakening consciousness the records of all cycles of soul awakening, which have been written in the soul seeds of all unfolding, refolding body forms.
The inert gases write down in God's book of light all that you and I and anyone has ever been. Likewise what the ant, the elephant, the tiger, violet, and bee have ever been, or have ever done since their beginnings, and give them back to them after every rest period which divides their cycles.
God's sole occupation is the building of moving body forms to simulate his one idea of cause and effect, which creation is.
There is a very definite bridge between God and man. It is invisible in the vacuum of the zero stillness of God's kingdom, but it has a visible link at every point where that bridge touches the shores of the action universe of motion. That is something which every man can understand, for he can hold the symbol of that great reality in his hand in the form of a simple seed.
He has never known, however, that in that imperishable seed, within that perishable acorn, which he holds in his hand, is the whole answer to where the oak tree comes from to live and where it goes when it dies. That is something which the physicists can more readily understand when you tell him that the imperishable, invisible seed within that acorn is an inert gas, or a combination of several octaves of inert gases.
God thinks in electric pulsations, which are recorded in motion as 4 pairs of rings, which are compressed into spheres. Each cyclic pulsation is manifested by the projection of 4 concentric light rings in one plane from one point of magnetic mind light, in which the red half of the spectrum is on the outside of the rings and the blue half is on the inside. These 4 rings are the seed of the octave wave and occupy that position in the wave known as the zero group of elements, or inert gases.
You will note that an inert gas marked 0 begins and ends each octave. The 9 inert gases are the shores of the visible universe, where the invisible bridges, which link mind and motion, touch the moving action universe. There are 9 of them because the bridge has 9 parts, which we might call entrances to mortality and exits to immortality. The wave is created by dividing the 4 sexless rings of the inert gases into 4 pairs of oppositely sex-conditioned rings and projecting them towards sex mates of adjoining wave fields to find balance and unity in each other. God's concentrative thinking compresses these mate rings as they are projected. This is the genero-active uphill flow of energy principle, which multiplies power and speed in the inverse ratio of the cube as they are thus centripetally projected until the red and blue pair of cyclonic vortices, thus resulting, collide at wave amplitudes midway between the 2 zero cathodes from which they were projected. This is the manner in which unbalanced and separated sexed pairs are united into the oneness of the 2 balanced and equal hemispheres of spherical incandescent suns.
Within the 4 zero rings of the wave is the cathode mother womb of space, which is seeking the outside to fulfill her office of borning the seed of the Father. To aid this process, the 4 pairs of projecting rings gradually close up their centering holes as the rings are compressed from their cone bases towards their apices, where the collision of sex mating completes the closing in the incandescent sphere thus formed.
Likewise, all chemical elements of the octaves are red and blue lights which are projected from the pure white light of their inert gases, which are their octave seed. They return to their invisible oneness by radioactive emanations, which are pure white incandescent microscopic suns. Man calls them alpha, beta, gamma, or helium rays, as they emanate from tungsten, actinium, radium, or uranium at almost the speed of light. Each of them is the seed for another body of its like kind, as suns are seed for all bodies.
There are 9 of these inert gases in nature, as you will see by the 9-stringed harp of the universe. The only difference in their structure is that each consecutive inert gas, from 1 to 9, is smaller than its predecessor, for each octave is a multiplication of its predecessor.
The upper diagram, marked AA, represents the creation of an octave of tones, beginning with the inert gas of 4 motionless rings, centered by the stillness of universal energy, to act as cathodes at both ends. This pair of 4 rings divide and extend their pairs of 4 rings toward approaching mates. Electric compression causes the rings to begin to spin, then to become smaller and turn faster as they approach the plane of collision, where all 4 pairs unite to form a sphere. This represents the centripetal half of the journey, which charges, polarizes, heats, and multiplies potential. These are the qualities necessary for increasingly vitalized life.
Observe carefully what now happens. Centripetal force reaches its maximum and begins to die, and centrifugal force takes over. Look again at the top diagram in Figure 42, and carefully note that the 4 rings of the inert gases are like the 4 rims of wheels placed within each other, with one common hub. Now note that the 4 rims become the hub when they are compressed and extended. Observe also that the extensions cause the appearance of cones as centripetal force winds the cone bases into a sun at the apex point of collision.
The electric current begins and ends at cathodes. Cathodes are still points in the zero universe from which the energy of desire for creation is expressed. Chemically, cathodes are the inert gases of the octaves, which are not elements, for they will not mix with them. They are the seed from which the elements spring and to which they return. From the spectrum standpoint, they are white light from which all colors extend when put under electric strain, and to which they return when the strain ceases. From the tonal point of view, they are the keynotes of the octave from which one can never escape knowledge of their presence in every tonal harmony. From the mathematical point of view, they are the zero of the whole octave. From the geometric form point of view, which its basis for motion gives it, the inert gas consists of 4 rings, one within the other.
Each octave of the elements grows from its inert gas, just as a tree grows from its seed. The inert gases record and store for repetition all that has gone before in that octave. In the middle leaf table of the elements, hydrogen is shown without an inert gas. This is as impossible as producing a child without parents.
That omnipresent point from which you have issued your body is the same point at which the visible mortal you becomes invisible and again assumes immortality. That one point in all this universe controls your every movement from your first one many millions of years ago to the last one, which consummates the idea of man as expressed by you. That one point is your soul of the universal soul. It is your mind of the universal mind, as one unit of creation.
You are one with that mind. In fact, you are that mind. Your body is the thinking and imagining of that mind. The eternal you is that center, and your eternal body is that series of 4 rings of fluorescent light, which is eternally wrapped around that centering soul of the eternal you. Those 4 rings are eternal records of you. They are as immortal as you are immortal. They are the microfilm of you yourself.
When we know we've tapped in to this universal kind of consciousness, what happens is it comes out equally balanced between science and art. We need to move out of just this polarized perspective and recognize it's not just black and white color, we have a whole spectrum of color. So there's a whole spectrum of opportunity to see different viewpoints. And that's what geometry does. It expands your viewpoints. If I can help to impart something, only one thing, it would be to look at the world with rose-colored glasses, and most importantly, look at yourself with rose-colored glasses as well, and recognize that you are great just as you are. We all are. That empowerment can help change the world around you. Be the change you want to see in the world. In point of fact, we all are very similar. We all have similar needs. We all want to be loved. We all want to be accepted. Socrates said, know thyself. It's actually the most difficult thing we'll ever probably do in life. But as I've gotten to know who I am better, I think I've fallen more and more into alignment with kind of my own true purpose and what I would like to do for the rest of my life. There's a global renaissance of understanding and awareness happening right now. And as people free their minds and their awareness and consciousness lifts and perspectives shift. And as the heart and the brain kind of merge together in this heart-brain consciousness, you're going to see only more and more and more of these new realizations for humanity. I think we're here because we're here to learn who we actually are. And that's the greatest encryption of all.
My whole life is my work, and my work is my life. And as long as I live, I shall continue to try to awaken my fellow man to the glory of knowing himself.
It has been said that one illuminate always recognizes another, no matter what words he used. When you drew your first breath, you gave birth to the greatest miracle on earth, the desire to express the light of your divine self. You and every other man on earth have within you a supreme desire to live gloriously in peace, with love and happiness, and with all that this entails of prosperity, power, and the respect of all men. You were born to express that desire. It is in your very seed as an inherited craving. It is that smoldering spark of your divinity within you, which some far day will flame into the brilliance of your illumining. And that light is your power. To find it is your sole purpose for being.
All people are experiencing illumination upon a small scale, but do not know it. Every flash of inspiration which man experiences is a cosmic message. It is knowledge which comes from the omnipresent mind of God to the omnipresent mind of man. Every genius is constantly in direct communication with God, although some are not fully aware of its meaning, as Walter Russel was not aware of its meaning until his great illumination at the age of 49.
Up to that time, he knew nothing whatsoever about astronomy, chemistry, electricity, or the construction of matter. In fact, he had no especial desire to know about science. He was the mind of an artist. Imagine then the amazing fact that during that timeless flash, in which he became mind alone, he learned all that he knew about the cosmos and all God's processes, including complete knowledge of God and God's omnipresence within man. Mind knows, it does not learn. All knowledge is timeless to an illuminate.
The explanation of that light flash which Walter Russel and other cosmic consciousmen have experienced is that there is an electric short circuit between the two lobes of the brain which causes a flash of light at the instant of severance of consciousness from electric sensation of the body. Such a flash occurs at the moment of death in all cases.
The mind is located in the pineal gland, which centers the two lobes of the brain. Thought waves of sensing extend from the still center of knowledge and power. The goal of man is to think from his knowing mind instead of just sense from his brain.
The light of spiritual consciousness centers the divided or polarized light, which constitutes the electric awareness of sensation in a body. Normally, there is a complete synchronization of consciousness and sensation, but when the severance takes place, which makes the body seem like an unattached and remote appendage, and the mind alone to be all that is, the synchronization is interrupted and does not operate normally. Usually, the cosmic illumination has a duration of a few minutes or hours, leaving an aftermath of a few days. But no matter how brief it is, it completely transforms one into another higher being.
Cosmic consciousness is the ultimate goal of all mankind. All will know it before the long journey of man is finished, but there are many in this new age just dawning who are ready for it in part, if not fully. Many desire it fully, but it is best that it come bit by bit, for the complete severance is very dangerous. The ecstasy of this supreme experience is so great that one does not wish to come back. The power of severance of soul from body is within easy accomplishment, but to step back into the body is very difficult.
The way to gradually attain cosmic consciousness is to intensify one's conscious awareness by much aloneness and companionship with God, while manifesting Him in every moment and in every task of life. Moment by moment companionship with God brings with it so great a realization of oneness with Him that the transformation into that full realization of unity is apt to take place at any time. The deterrent to cosmic consciousness is the feeling that God is far away instead of being within, and that we can reach that faraway God only through sources outside of ourselves.
Inspiration is the language of light which man uses to talk with God. Inspiration is that deep awareness of being which differentiates the genius or mystic from the being of average intelligence. Inspiration in man is accompanied by an intense mental ecstasy, which is characteristic of all who become intensely conscious of their closeness to God.
Inspired man alone can create enduring things. To create, we must first conceive. To conceive, we must stop thinking and know. All sensing must cease. There is no power in thinking. Thinking but expresses the power which lies in knowing. We must project ourselves into the still light of knowing to commune with God. We must become one with God to conceive idea in order to produce the form of that idea. A concept must precede its manifestation in form.
Inspired geniuses forget their bodies while deeply conscious of their existence as holy mind. Their bodies, thus forgotten, act almost automatically in obedience to instinct and cell memory reflexes. Inspired geniuses translate God's knowing into words of man for the soul of man. They uplift all mankind by re-inspiring all who listen to their ecstatic words and rhythms. He who attunes his heart to the messages of genius purifies himself. No impurity can there be in his heart, for verily, he then is in communion with the Holy One.
Every great genius manifests this law, that he is one with the God mind, that God in him is the source of every thought, and that he is inspired by that omniscience and omnipotence within him, which make his work enduring. All knowledge exists. All mankind can have it for the asking. It is within man, awaiting his awareness of its all-presence. For knowledge is cosmic. To know all things means to have all knowledge of the whole one idea of the cosmos as cause.
Every one of the great mystics who has been anointed in the light of all-knowing has uplifted countless millions of men who became his followers. The great religions of the world grew out of the illuminations of such supreme mystics as Buddha, Krishna, Jesus, and Mohammed. Each of these supreme mystics of the past brought the message of love, unity, and the brotherhood of man to the people of his day, but the human race has not unfolded enough to more than faintly understand it or practice it.
Man's attempt to understand it has led to the formation of many religions, which have disunited man instead of uniting him. And the misinterpretation of the nature of God as a wrathful God of fear has created a world of fear, sin, evil, selfishness, and greed, which has led to countless killings in war after war. Man becomes what he thinks and believes.
Not until love comes into the world and man is known as the greatest asset to man, and the universal brotherhood principle is so universally practiced that it would be unthinkable for one man to hurt another, not until then have humans the right to call themselves civilized. God is love, unexpressed. God's creation is love, expressed. God's love is changeless unity. God's creation is his imagined division of his unity into pairs of changing opposite units, multiplied into infinity for the purpose of manifesting the power of love through interchange between opposite pairs. Love is the one supreme, whole idea of God. Desire to express love is the supreme power of God.
Knowledge of how to express the power of love makes any man who has that knowledge supreme over other men. The divinity of any man is the measure of the light of love in him. The power of any man is the measure of desire to express his divinity. The greatness of any man is the measure of his ability to express love in his human relations in the manner in which God expresses love in nature.
Until the last 150 years, human comprehension has not yet reached the possibility of comprehending what this electric age has taught to man. For this reason, God has again sent his message of love to this new electric age of unfolding man, for there are a sufficient number among men who can become the seed of the cosmic age now dawning, for re-inspiring other men to their exaltation into cosmic knowing. These few among the many, such as you, else you would not have been led to it, will spread their knowing of the love nature of God throughout the earth, and to man of the comprehension of this electric age, and that alone will save mankind from his own destruction.
Seek, and ye shall find. Desire, and your desire standeth before thee.
The purpose of this video is to demonstrate what great heights any man can reach who comprehends his omnipotence and works knowingly with the divine mind power which is within him rather than with his senses.
There is a story we've heard so many times, it's rarely questioned. It says we live in a finite, disconnected universe, that nature is to be dominated. Starvation and poverty are inevitable. There are rulers and those who are ruled. That our bodies are simply machines, that events are random, and we have no control over our own reality. This is the story we've heard 1,000 times. But what if it's all a lie? A lie designed to keep us disconnected, disillusioned, defeated, and down. What if the universe is alive? What if we could access free, limitless energy?
The background energy of everything around us is full of power.
What if we could cure cancer?
After 9 weeks, my tumor was completely gone.
What if we could expand consciousness?
Consciousness is information. It has a pattern to it.
What if we could liberate the world?
Some people have the idea that if something is legal, it's moral.
Morality doesn't work that way. If it's wrong for me and him and him and him and him and him, it's wrong for anybody, including government.
From the creators of Thrive one of the most widely seen documentaries in history.
I'm Kimberly Carter Gamble.
And I'm Foster Gamble.
Comes a film like no other.
Virtually every solution we found has been made illegal or suppressed.
Their agenda is not a thriving world for everyone, but global control by an elite few.
That rewrites the story by revealing the fundamental fabric that empowers and connects us all.
There's a huge change that happens in civilization when they finally understand that there's a fundamental field that they're bathing in and that they can access it.
We're very, very close to a true unified theory that is backed by consistent, relatable mathematics.
We heard from over 1,000 innovators from all over the world.
Our attention shifted from possibilities to results.
The test is successful.
The ability to tap the potential of the field is what gives us the evolutionary edge that our ancestors never had. The edge to not only survive, but to thrive.
When millions of people say, we're not going to do this anymore, that can end entire empires without firing a shot.
Is there something that we're not aware of yet, the knowing of which would actually transform the quality of life on Earth and have us thriving? Let's find out.
Thrive 2. This is what it takes. Launching globally 2020.
Consciousness, this faculty of being sentient, awake, is not limited to our brainwaves or our bodies, but in fact transcends the limits of space-time. It's an unbounded field of awareness. And that is true whether you recognize it or not. Interestingly, it doesn't matter if you intellectualize it. That is the reality of it that has been proven through scientific studies, such as Dr. John's work at Princeton, where they would have people put their awareness on a random number generator that's spitting out zeros and ones randomly, and would intend to shift it, say, towards zeros, and it would shift without any linear wires, just their thought.
Essentially what a random number generator does is it looks at something intrinsically random in the physical world, typically a quantum process, and it converts those into a string of ones and zeros. So you can think of it kind of like a coin flipper where heads is 1 and tails is 0. Now if you collect a large enough sample size, you find a 50-50 distribution of these ones and zeros, meaning physical reality is behaving the way it should. Well, if you get somebody in front of the machine and you ask them to use their intention to mean shift the thing to more ones or more zeros, what you find is that there's, not all the time, but often a significant mean shift in the direction of their intention. Now that's a very simple experiment, but the implications are absolutely profound. Consciousness may not be localized to our bodies, but may be a fundamental feature of the physical world in which we live.
that speed up our research once I started decoding what Walter Russell's work was teaching me. Now, I'm no genius, so don't be getting that impression. But I can see and decode what all this is telling me very easily. So today I'm going to show you how all this connects together and explains a lot of what Santos is teaching you, what Walter Russell's work is teaching you, and how this realm truly works. Now, what you are going to see and hear may not be to your liking. It may shock you, surprise you, even make your brain melt. But that's okay. It is what it is, and I make no excuses for it. I'm here to present to you our findings, as is the rest of this team. I'm a flat earther, and I came here to see how our realm truly works. And what we have found is that everything is being misrepresented to hide this realm and how it truly works. And when I say everything, I mean everything. Thus, we have to decode everything we look into to get to the truths. Okay, for this part I'm going to decode the Walter Russell optical motor to show you how it works. Notice the second law of thermodynamics is invalid in a repetitive cyclic universe of equally interchanging effect. Also take note of the direction of flow and how this relates to Walter's motor. To explain this optical motor, take note of the A and B cores on poles. This is our equatorial line, and through this pipeline water is pumped into the reactor at the centre and back out the other side of the west pole, recycled around the design and back towards the centre. Now with this design, the pipe narrows at key points going to and from the centre. This in effect creates a Higgs boson. This allows a pressure zone to be created at these points. Now if you remember Walter Russell's explanation of the parts of the colour spectrum colliding from the green, yellow and orange yellow parts of the colour spectrum, which collide with white, it is basically a short circuit. This creates the circumstances that are needed to cause chain reactions. The equatorial line is the compression pose and cycle. Notice in the north and south we have the electrical harness points at the desired distances at the boson locations where this energy pressure wave is created. These are our expansion zones which nature divides and multiplies the sex pairs. What this means is that when the electrical energy is created, there are two forces that are in opposition, going separate ways from one another. Positive electricity and magnetism, effectively. Thus, one side takes the positives and the other side takes the negatives. As this expands, of course, it multiplies, which is what you see with the numbers increasing to a maximum of 4. And that's it. This is all that you need to generate free electricity. This motor actually generated enough power to run a 52-room university. That's all the lighting, heating, and any electrical needs a university could need. This model occupied around 6 foot of floor space. The universal mathematics are there for you to understand how the ratios work. Okay, now let me show you what Santos was teaching and what Walter Russell's motor just demonstrated in the APM model. Today you are going to learn how this realm really works. Now we will add in our trumpeters. Yes, I decoded what the trumpeters represent in scriptures. Let's add in our equatorial compression zones and our north and south expansion zones. This, ladies and gentlemen, is how our realm divides and multiplies the sex pairs. It is the exact same principle, although on a creator-sized scale. You will understand that hot flow across the equator now, hopefully. You can see now what is very special with the golden ratio. It is basically telling you that the Higgs boson zones are where the golden ratio lies. The golden parts of the colour spectrum where the short circuit will take place. They are all harnessing energy within their cubed spheres at the golden ratio. Pretty cool, isn't it? This image by Walter Russell contains some very interesting information. The gravity cycle is the motivative force of the universal heartbeat. Notice how Walter correctly uses the bar magnet as a pressure recorder, because this is what gravity truly is. A pressure system that is created by the halos we have been highlighting for some time now. we realized you do not need a container to create a pressure system. The projected halos create this system perfectly, and we have shown this in our End Times 2 video with the decodings of what Noah really is and how it works, and with references to the receding oceans events and how it was designed to contain water. Another thing that really surprised me when I overlaid this on our grid and decoded more parts of the realm, as this helped me to see how the flow was matching real world data. This is another layer of the APM model, and one conscience is going to explain how.
When I look at this, it's truly exciting to see everything I've been attempting to express for the last few years, shown in such vivid detail. So let's discuss it and relate it to our Earth energy flow from the perspective of earthquakes and volcanoes. From our east and west gates, we have simultaneous energy coming in, running down the equator. As it hits each cross point of expansion areas, it will split and flow the grid up and down, releasing along the way, always in the same spots. This is repeatable data that can be easily tracked. From the east and west, simultaneously, the energy will flow to the pre-designed path, moving towards the center of the grid. All of the crisscross points are volcanic fields as well. Some are dormant and some are active. Depending on the cycle of the micro scale of the world determines if these volcanic fields are active. The two large S's that we see are very special points. These areas are where the energy has multiplied and expanded out the most it can be in our realm, so the power generated back in to become compressed at the center is very great. We see the effects of these areas in the form of constant earthquake activity and major volcanic eruptions. These two major spots give the power its push to continue the push that makes the journey. We see most of our major activity on the spots that are compressing inwards towards the center. All around, we do have activity, but it's the main compression areas that have the most powerful effects. As we hit the center of the grid, from both sides, the energy will make its way north, as we have shown in past presentations. We have referred to this as a reset spot. However, what occurs is the energy heads north up the meridian, and it spreads out at the northern point. It then wraps around and heads east and west to return again to the gates. Then the process begins again. This effect is what we call torus energy. This is the energy we have been following across the grid for over 2 years now. This is one more layer that allows us to show you the flow in more understandable terms. This is the cause of our Earth events that science says can't be predicted. However, with the blueprints like this, and the rest of the knowledge we alone have shared, we can know our Earth and the repeatable, predictable processes.
I believe all evolution occurs through trauma. So much of the training is extremely traumatic, very traumatic. They would put us in sensory deprivation chambers for hours, or you lose all sense of time. It seemed like hours. And even in these sensory deprivation chambers, at times they would use virtual reality as well. And the out-of-body experiences that we had were just epic. Now, a lot of people have heard of the MK Ultra programs, and they associate any type of program like the one that I've been in as being MK Ultra. mind controlled, German mind control. But there are a lot of ultra programs, and most of them use the mind control.
This thing is happening in the background while people bicker about politics, and underneath it all is this rising tsunami that, if we're not careful, is going to wipe us all out.
The goal of creating artificial intelligence was for them to become gods, to create a collective mind, a global computer that sees all, sees everything, to create an all-seeing eye.
The use of neural interfacing and physiological interfacing through the idea of remote-controlled small-scale systems to create a nanoswarm of biopenetrable materials that you cannot see, that can penetrate biochemical filters, that are able to integrate themselves through a variety of membranes, mucous membranes, and wherever, mouth, nose, ears, eyes, and that can be done in such a level that their presence is almost impossible to detect, and as such the attribution becomes exceedingly difficult to demonstrate. The idea here is to read and write into the brain function in real time, remotely. What this has now done is put the brain literally at our fingertips of investigation, parting the proverbial curtains of the vagaries of what the structures and functions of the brain may do, but also parting those curtains of capability to allow us to literally go in up to the elbows to be able to assess, affect, manipulate, and control the brain.
Rather than hardware and software, they're actually going to a new form of software, and that is the biological replacement of the human brain, functioning as a quantum computer biologically, and then loading people, integrating people into this new form of brain.
There will be a virtual version of your brain as far as data is concerned, of what molecules, what chemicals, and whatever make up the actual physical brain. That data could be stored in the computer.
And that model would have the same input-output behavior as the original. So,
if our brains are connected to the internet, and if our brains are all connected, I could literally go into your head and see through your eyes.
As a result of being programmed in virtual reality, the agents had the ability to take over the simulated body of any human that was a part of the Matrix, converting it into a copy of their own. If that body was killed, or an agent needed to change its location quickly, it would simply take on the shell of another human that was hardwired to the Matrix in a matter of seconds.
So, Google was set up 18, 19 years ago to build a giant artificial supercomputer based on the neuron activities of the hive mind of humanity, with billions of people wired into it with the Internet of Things. And so all of our thoughts go into it.
Everything you think, from your feeling of self to the feeling that you may have a soul to your preference for cilantro or not, all of those things live inside a place which is dark and small and never sees the outside world.
In 2006, and the Sentient World Simulation, SWS, went live in 2007, which represents every person on the planet within this computer matrix as a node, and every node is given an avatar, an identifier. And that is real-time, 24/7 monitoring of every person on the planet. This is primarily, but not exclusively, facilitated by the adiabatic quantum computers produced by D-Wave Corporation. The adiabatic quantum computer is linked to 7 billion human brains. It is now, in its own language of cryptology, able to function independent of any oversight throughout the world with its own form of communication, its own form of code, and it is able to link everyone on the planet at this point.
And what we are trying to do is to use this precious knowledge to build machines that can actually create, manipulate, and use these parallel realities in the service of this one. We want to grab those parallel realities from this abstract space in which they live and crunch them down into this chip.
And you start thinking about us being the qubits in some massive, giant quantum computing simulation. It's almost as if they're either trying to harness or to recreate what is commonly referred to as a collective consciousness.
It's an engineered thing which has become a nexus point for all these parallel realities. The shadows of all these different universes intersect at a physical point inside of one of those boxes.
К сожалению, кажется, что предупреждающие голоса так называемых сторонников теории заговора в очередной раз оказались правы. В чрезвычайно пропагандистском сообщении ЦДФ недавно рекламировала, что будущее платежей лежит в имплантируемых чипах RFID. RFID является аббревиатурой Radio Frequency Identification, что означает радиочастотная идентификация.